Hi, my name's Aiden, and it's time to talk about gun control. Ever since the Parkland shooting, gun control has taken the center stage of political discussion. Gun control is an enormous issue with extreme passion on both sides, and it's a hard one to tackle because of that intensity. I have strong opinions on this subject, but in this video, we're not going to discuss my opinions. That being said, let's talk about this. I know you probably already understand all of this, but I want to start with a broad explanation of gun control, what it is, and what people believe it can do. Now, gun control is exactly what it sounds like. It's legislative action to restrict the sale and use of firearms. Essentially, it's laws that make it more difficult for Americans to buy guns. Democrats claim that gun control is the answer to gun violence. The argument is that if we make firearms less accessible, less people will have firearms, and therefore less people will use firearms. Now, Republicans say that's impossible. Their argument is that if we put limitations on these firearms, then only criminals will get these firearms. Well, what does this have to do with students? School shootings. A lot of people have been saying there has already been 18 school shootings in 2018. That's a staggering statistic. It's not true. The real number is closer to about 5. For my list, I've considered it a school shooting if a firearm has been discharged on campus, resulting in the death of a student. Since I wrote the script for this video, there was another shooting in Maryland. Democrats think that we can take steps to prevent these mass shootings, and that's where Panther comes in. On March 14th, our school held a protest against gun violence and advocated stronger gun control. The protest took place at 9:50, with students walking out of their second period classes and voicing their dissatisfaction with the current firearm regulations. The plan for the protest originated from an online petition put out by student activists Sheil Patel and Anna Crosby. I sat down with Sheil and Anna to better understand the reasoning behind the walkout. You guys are helping organize the walkout. Why do you feel this event is important?
I think first and foremost, especially the two of us, believe that kids our age and younger need to know that their voices do matter, that they do have an opinion that's worth listening to, that they can make a difference, they can enact change.
Throughout history, it's always been teenagers and young people who've always been enacted to change. The freedom riders, some of the most influential poets and politicians started young. And it's crazy to me that people our age are discouraged from voicing our opinion in politics just because of our age. That's why it's so important.
What are some things you think everyone should know about gun control, or guns in general?
Gun control does not mean that you don't have the right to carry a gun. It just means that we have the right to limit the number of people who have died senselessly and will die senselessly by someone else's irresponsible acts.
This whole movement, some people mischaracterize it, but we are not anti-Second Amendment. We are pro-American lives.
And are you in favor of banning guns completely?
There's two sides to every argument. I understand why some people feel they need to have a gun, whether it be self-defense or security, but on the other hand, there have been numerous counts that just spell out why exactly we need change like this right now. So as opposed, in terms of having complete ban on all guns, it's hard to say. I definitely see why some people would feel the need to keep guns.
Personally, I am not against all guns. In fact, someday I even want to own a gun, just a handgun.
So it sounds like they're pushing for more restriction over the sale of firearms, and not necessarily an overall firearm ban. Now, although the protest has been more or less widely supported, there has been some criticisms with it. I sat down with two students who had some concerns about the walkout. On the school walkout, what are your feelings towards this event?
Okay, so I feel like, there should be a rally against gun violence, but I'm not for what they're going for. People do kill other people, not guns kill people. I do believe that people do kill people.
Yeah, I also don't agree with the proposed solutions. I don't think they'll solve the issue. If you were to, ban the AR-15, which is one of the things that the rally is calling for, that would only create, complete outrage, especially, with conservatives, being that they mainly, use guns. Banning one gun wouldn't stop people from buying any other semi-automatic rifle to go do the exact same thing.
What are some things you think everyone should know about gun control, or guns in general?
So the thing about guns is that, even if you ban an AR-15, people may have an intention of buying another semi-automatic gun. As well as if you ban semi-automatic guns, then that means they can just go buy pistols.
Another thing when it comes to just guns in general, especially if you were to ban, semi-automatic guns in the United States, if someone wants to kill somebody, they're going to find a way to do it, even if it's not with a gun. But with the amount of guns in the United States, several hundreds of millions, which could be obtained and, used illegally, because criminals don't follow the law.
What kind of gun control, if any, do you agree with?
I don't think we should necessarily ban any more weapons or guns that are banned as of right now, but I think some more legislation wouldn't hurt. I think it'd be good to, pass criminals with a criminal record. I don't think they should be able to obtain a gun legally, or, the mentally ill.
Do you agree that there is a problem?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So, there's obviously a problem with gun violence in the United States.
I don't hate liberals.
So I respect, the left's opinions on this. I can definitely see their view on it.
I do respect their opinions. I don't think most of them are bad.
Polls around the country say that the vast majority of Americans support smaller limitations on guns, such as the universal background checks.
I don't think it's an argument on whether or not this country needs to have stricter background checks. I think it's something at this point that everybody just knows that needs to happen and knows that needs to change.
However, there is still some more controversy around each legislation that I'd like to discuss. Let's look at the main points from the walkout and discuss the pros and cons of each. The first one I want to talk about is additional background checks and the banning of gun sales to convicted criminals. A possible pro could be that it could help high-risk individuals from gaining access to firearms. But a possible con could be that it might infringe upon criminals' right to self-defense. Maybe someone who has a criminal record who messed up when they were young. Does that mean they don't have the right to defend themselves? Now let's look at pros and cons of banning all guns. Pros could be that it'll be much more simpler for police to understand who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. Anyone with a gun will be the bad guy in that situation. If you use the rest of the world as a case study, then it would certainly lessen the amount of firearm deaths in America. But the cons of banning all guns would probably be that anyone who lives in any sort of dangerous part of America no longer has the right to defend themselves. The absence of this self-defense could also be harmful. Now moving on to two much more bipartisan issues, banning bump stocks. A pro of this could be that it slows down all firearms to semi-automatic. Right now, in America, it is illegal to buy an automatic firearm. However, the bump stock is about as close as you can get. I'm sure you all know what a bump stock is. With the bump stock attached, a firearm could reach rates of potentially 800 rounds a minute. That's well into automatic firearm territory. Again, this is pretty bipartisan. I couldn't really find any cons of this. I was looking around on the internet. There doesn't seem to be too many people mad about banning bump stocks. And another bipartisan issue, repealing the Dickey Amendment. Pros to repealing this amendment would be information. We can learn more about how firearms affect America if we properly fund the CDC to do the research about it. What the Dickey Amendment does is it strips the CDC of its funding to research gun-related issues. Again, with this one, looked around on the internet, couldn't find anyone against it. Repealing the Dickey Amendment wouldn't really do anything directly to guns, it would just allow us to get more knowledge about the issue. I think it's important to note something about the Dickey Amendment here. A lot of people claim that it bans the CDC from researching guns, but that's not quite true. It just strips the funding of CDC research on guns. Now, there wasn't many cons to these specific gun legislations because the cons of gun control as a whole are much more general. They're more things like, well, we have the Second Amendment, we deserve the rights to guns, and why should my guns be taken away if I did nothing wrong?
This endless effort by liberals and people they co-opt in their movement to take away firearms from people like me who didn't do a damn thing wrong. What did I do wrong?
I want to talk for a second about banning all guns.
A lot of what you heard on that stage is, we want to take your gun.
This has been a really big part of the conversation lately, with conservatives assuming that liberals want to ban all guns, but that's simply not true. A vast majority of people across the board, 71% in fact, disagree with banning all guns. The only ban seriously being discussed right now is the one on assault weapons, which was in effect from 1994 to 2004. I want to note one more interesting thing before I conclude this video, and let's go back to that Gallup poll. Back in the 90s, gun control was pretty close to being a bipartisan issue. Support for the assault weapons ban was up at 57%. 78% of people thought that gun laws should be more strict. If you go even further back, in 1959, a whopping 60% of people thought that there should be a ban on handguns. It's interesting how the turn of the century changed the public opinion so much on gun control. To be honest, I'm not quite sure why. Stronger lobbying by the NRA, the new resurgence of conservatism, maybe a modern emphasis on the Constitution? The truth is, I don't know. I want to conclude by recommending that you do more research and educate yourself on this before you set your opinion in stone. Even me, while researching for this video, came across a few things that were really interesting and thought-provoking. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks for watching.